And then later on, if you watch this recording on our YouTube channel or on Facebook. So now in our 11th year, Kansas City Oasis is the premier secular alternative to faith-based communities. We welcome all, regardless of belief or non-belief, race, gender, sexual orientation, identity, or any other trait. We feel the human experience is so much better when it's shared, and we're so pleased that you have chosen to share it with us this morning. We gather around our 5 values that you now see here displayed. Did anyone notice when we got the new banners? I think they're pretty cool. I don't know if we've talked about them, but yeah. So maybe sometime we'll take the slide out because now they're here all the time. But they are. People are more important than beliefs. Reality is known through reason. Human hands solve human problems. Meaning comes from making a difference, and be accepting and be accepted. And we go into a little more detail about what we mean about those on our website, which you can also see there on the banner. So for today's program, we have a featured speaker, Matt Beat, on the power of the Supreme Court. Our musical guest is our very own Steve Morton. And our community moment will be given by Jason as a last-minute fill-in, so we appreciate that. So now here comes the part in our program I traded to get to MC for you, Steve. Steve and I go way back. Here is a picture of one of the first times I heard Steve perform in public, and this was at his wedding in 2007. Is that correct? Okay, I even remember what year, so that's good. And also the first time I attended Kansas City Oasis was with Steve and Stacy over at Tony Aguirre back in 2016. I think in the lead up to that election, there was a speaker talking about universal health care, and that was something that Steve, coming from England, was super interested in because we do not have that here. So that is the first thing that brought us to Kansas City Oasis, both of us. So Steve was born in England, came to the US after meeting his wife when they both left the same religion and joined the same support group. He doesn't have a Venmo account, but his wife does, and we'll give him the tips, she promises. Okay, so let's give a big Oasis welcome to one of my dear friends, Steve Morton.
Thank you. So I'll say from the off that I don't have any original songs. Well, that's not quite true. I have one original song, but I'm not going to play it for you today. I wrote it when I met Stacy, and that's when the creative juices were flowing, but it's never happened since, so... Can't reach it. Okay, thanks. And so what you're going to hear today are all covers. A couple of them you might and probably will know, and a couple of them you won't know. So the first song I'm going to do is by somebody that you probably all know pretty well, and that's John Denver. So here goes. Well, my bags are packed, I'm ready to go. Standing here outside your door, I hate to wake you up to say goodbye. Well, the dawn is breaking, it's early morn. Taxi's waiting, blowing his horn. Already I'm so lonesome I could die. So kiss me, smile for me, tell me that you'll wait for me, and hold me like you'll never let me go. 'Cause I'm leaving on a jet plane, don't know when I'll be back again. Oh babe, I hate to go. There's so many times I've played around, so many times I've let you down. I tell you now, they don't mean a thing. So one more time, let me kiss you. Let me say how much I miss you. When I come back, I'll bring your wedding ring. So kiss me, smile for me. Tell me that you'll wait for me and hold me like you'll never let me go. 'Cause I'm leaving on a jet plane, don't know when I'll be back again. Oh babe, I hate to go, 'cause I'm leaving on a jet plane, don't know when I'll be back again. Oh babe, I hate to go. So this second song is by somebody you might have heard of, Chris de Burgh, who was famous in the 80s for a song called Lady in Red. But Chris de Burgh, I've followed him since I was a teenager. He has like 25 albums out, and he's principally a storyteller. So he tells stories, historic, fantasy, romance. And so this particular song is, I want you to imagine that there's an African tribal chieftain, and he's dying, and he's gathered all his people around him, and basically these are the words that he's saying to them at the end of his life, and it's called Spirit. But I run no more. I was a river, but the river's dry. Soon the Spirit is coming to take me home. I've seen the sunrise in 1,000 ways. I've seen the wonder of a summer storm. I've seen a mountain when it touched the sky. Soon the Spirit is coming to take me home. Do not cry for me, I'm in the wind. Do not cry for me, I'm with the sun. Do not cry for me, I'm in the stars. Soon the Spirit is coming to take me home. Children, I've seen them grow. I have a garden that is all the world. We come with nothing, that's how we'll go. Soon the Spirit is coming to take me home. Do not cry for me, I'm in the rain. Do not cry for me, stars. Soon Soon the Spirit is coming to take me home. Soon the Spirit is coming to take me home.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. So you and I will chat a little bit in the middle of the program about where you get inspiration from, what led you to music. So we'll talk about, you and I'll talk a little bit more in the middle of the program. So stay tuned for that, everyone. So we'll kick into our announcements. We're gonna talk about some celebrations first. This week's birthdays, April 28th, Maureen Kennedy, who I see right there. All right. And James Skinner and Melanie Phillips are birthday twins, and we'll see, Jim will probably roll in here at some point, you never know with him. Here's a little anecdote about James. We have, where I work now, we have a weekly hosted event, and he comes every week. So I get to see Jim every week at my work, which is kind of a treat. And I think people are a little confused sometimes with my interactions with him. They're like, "Oh, you're very maybe rude to this gentleman in a wheelchair," and I'm like, "No, that's my friend Skinner. It's okay." So, all right. And then May 4th, our very own, somebody we watched grow from a little bitty person, Zoe Randolph's birthday. So, big birthday applause. Does anyone else have a birthday or celebration this week that we're not seeing up here? Oh, I see two people looking at each other right here. Do you have something you'd like to say? Oh, fantastic. That's inspiring now that I'm only been married a year and a half this time around. That's very inspiring. So thank you for sharing that with us. We have another anniversary. A big round of applause for Amy and Jason celebrating their 11th anniversary on May 1st. So love was in the air in May. Okay, Tim, you have something? May Day. Oh, May Day, okay. May Day's your day. They haven't ruined it yet. Okay. Okay. All right. Have days like that in your life. Okay, so Tim has had all sorts of monumental events happen to him on May 1st, and maybe that will be our experience this year too. Maybe some lightning will strike, just like it did for Jason and Amy on May 1st. Yeah, in April, showers bring May flowers. It was more like March flowers bring April. No, March showers, snow. Let's just move on. Okay, with that, we'll go into our volunteer of the week. Our volunteer of the week, Lisa Lund Phillips. Okay. As you see here, Lisa Lund Phillips is the magical content and editorial fairy. She has otherworldly powers mere mortals can only aspire to. Which mere mortals? Ooh, we have some grammar here. We need Lisa to which mere mortals can only aspire. Weekly, she produces all the event content you see on Facebook, creates and sends out our weekly newsletter, and is also on standby with her flute to be our Sunday musician if needed. Lisa's another person that makes Kansas City Oasis magically function. So give it up again for Lisa. And would you like to be volunteer of the week? If you would, we're always looking for volunteers to round out our committees and assist with our weekly Sunday gatherings. Before the program started, there was a scrolling slide that talked about some of the volunteer needs that we have for the committees. But for Sunday gatherings, where you are right now, there's a whiteboard in the lobby where you can sign up for some roles. You can sign up online at Sign Up Genius. That's posted in the Facebook private group, and a QR code in the lobby. But if you see something around, this is a community completely run by volunteers. If you see something on the floor, pick it up. If you see something that you think could use your attention, please just go ahead and do so. And we greatly appreciate all the volunteers, which is all of us, because we're all volunteers here. All right, let's talk about some activities coming up on Monday. Hello, Dolly, the monthly Monday musical. This is a sing-along one. That's the whole point. Anyone seen Hello, Dolly? Who's already seen Hello, Dolly? Me. I think I even saw it on stage, fortunately. So it's a good one. And so you won't want to miss that on tomorrow at 5:30. On Wednesday this week at 6 p.m., we will be at Gale's Public House for Rockstar Bingo. It's played on your phone. So you listen to song clips, then mark them on your bingo card to win prizes. And Gale's will donate $1 per player per round to Cleaver Little Sports for LGBTQ plus athletes and allies. And there are $5 happy hour food and drink specials while you play. So you absolutely cannot go wrong, it sounds like to me, with this event at Gale's on Wednesday this week. Before I talk a little bit about this slide, our next philanthropy event, I just want to give a shout out to everyone that joined us for an event we did yesterday. Several of us went to assist at Special Olympics down at Lee Summit North High School, and man, it might have been one of the funnest volunteering gigs I've done in a long time. The spirit of the kids and just how encouraging they were of each other. Sarah was like, it was so great because you'd see a kid go, man, you're so much faster than me, you're so fast, I just love how fast you are. So it was just a spirit environment, and they have invited us to come back, and I just cannot wait for the next opportunity. So if you see that one come up, I would strongly encourage you to do so. That being said, if you weren't able to do that, this coming Sunday, we will be cooking a meal, making and serving a meal for families staying at the Ronald McDonald House near Children's Mercy Hospital. Meal prep starts at 3:30, and we'll serve dinner at 5:30. I think some donations were needed for the actual food we're preparing. I'm not seeing the person in charge. Are we okay? Okay, so I think that's been covered, so thank you for your generosity in covering donations for the food that we'll be preparing. There is room for 6 to 10 volunteers, and again, this is on, I think, both the public and private page, if you're interested. Okay, so I caused some confusion with my post on this earlier this week. The Kansas City Oasis Memorial Day picnic was originally scheduled at English Landing. It has been rescheduled to Westwood Park. There's the address, the correct address shown there. So we won't have a regular Sunday gathering on Memorial Day weekend, but if you'd still like to see your fellow Oasans, bring some dishes to share, bring some lawn chairs. It's about 6 blocks, am I not pointing south? South, took me a second there, like that way, south of Oasis. And as an added bonus, the Oasis Book Club will hold their book club discussion at the picnic site at 1:15, so open air book club for anyone who wants to discuss May's book, How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. So that is something to look forward to. 2-for-1 Memorial Day activities. Another reminder, we have our second annual rummage sale coming up in August, and you're like, Julie, this slide might be a little early. However, spring cleaning is a real thing. If you start doing spring cleaning and find some things, items of value and good condition that you're looking to part ways with, you can start bringing them as soon as possible. But Susan, who is the organizer of this, has kindly asked for no clothes or books. So she, in her long history of holding rummage sales for organizations, has seen that those two things don't do so great, so anything but clothes or books. All right. With this, we'll talk a little bit about if you want to keep up to date on all of those things that I just went through, you can sign up for the email newsletter. You can do that by going to kcoasis.org and looking under the What's Happening tab that's shown up here, or you can scan this QR code, and that will help you get signed up. I talked a little bit, as I've gone through some of this, about the private page. It's not super exclusive. You just have to be friends with someone that's already a member. So anyone that has a yellow lanyard on can help you, or really any color lanyard on, because that means they've been here for a little bit and they can help you get connected to our private page. It just has a little more opportunity for dialogue and seeing what's going on with the community, as opposed to our public-facing page, which is mainly just events. So with that, we'll go into our community moment. Before I get started, again, Jason learned at 5:30 this morning that our scheduled community moment was going to be unavailable. So Jason has very kindly stepped in to fill this need for us. Jason would describe himself as technical, detail-oriented, and job-seeking, unfortunately. And his warning label is, he doesn't have all the answers, but I might dispute him on that. So let's please welcome up Jason.
Hello and good morning. This is a slide that we put up every once in a while of how to follow us and where to find things about Oasis and what's going on. And sometimes it's like, well, where do I find stuff? So I'm just going to do a walkthrough of some of these things so you can get a sense of where to find us. And to do that, I'm going to actually go there after I move it off to the side. Okay, so this might look a little bit different than when you're looking at it online because I'm an admin, but a lot of things are the same. So this is our Facebook page, and here you can find a lot of events. They're not always in chronological order. It's when things were recently published, including we're streaming live on Facebook now. And if you miss it, you can go back and watch it on our Facebook page. Now, if you're thinking, well, but what about things that are like in the future? Where can I find them? If you go under More and Events, it filters everything out except events. So here we are today, a lot of things we've talked about, and future events, including something we haven't announced coming in June. Every Thursday, we're going to have bachata dance classes. And we're coming up on a blood drive the next time we have a service Sunday. So you can find all of that under More and Events. All right, Instagram. So for those that don't use Facebook, but like Instagram, it's not as detailed, but we do post images of who the speaker is, who the musician is, and I also take recordings as the musicians play, and so it's not the same as what's on YouTube through the PA, but just from my phone, I publish, the musicians with some other songs that they play. So there's lots of things on our Instagram page, and you can follow us there. YouTube. So one of the things that Facebook changed recently is that they're only going to keep our live streams for 30 days. So we have years and years of live streams on Facebook. We're going to be able to download some of them and put them on our YouTube channel. But YouTube at this time does not have any intention of deleting them. So you can find some very old things on our YouTube channel as well as current ones. So the trick is, instead of going to home, if you go to live, that's where you'll find most of our recent ones, including what is streaming right now. And I'm not going to make it squeal by going to it. But you can also look at some ones from the past, as far as like go to oldest and see some from a long time ago, and see ones with Calvin Arsenia and things like that. So that is our YouTube page. Well, I don't like a lot of the social media that's going on. I want to go someplace else besides Facebook and Instagram because Instagram is owned by Facebook. Well, we have Blue Sky. So again, we put a lot of our events that's coming up on Blue Sky. Maybe that looks familiar. We just went over a lot of these. And so our Blue Sky to find us is at kcoasis.org. You can be follower number 54 if you join us today. And then one of the ones where we have absolutely everything and more is our kcoasis.org website. So this is what it looks like at the home page, including information about our meetings and upcoming events and our amazing board members, including our newest board member, Al. But there's, of course, menu things at the top where you can find things like what's happening, sign up for the newsletter. So we were just there a moment ago. We had a QR code. The QR code's not here, but it is in the lobby. Over that center door, when you go out there during coffee break, there's a running slideshow of a lot of these announcements and more, including QR codes. So if you missed the QR code, you can scan it or just go to kcoasis.org and find it here. 3 things: first name, last name, email, you're done. Some things about meetings. Let's see if it'll load here. Waiting for the internet. Oh, there we go. Talks about what our meetings are about. For people that haven't come for the first time, they may want to find out what's going on. And then all of our events, like what we have on Facebook, are also cross-posted here. So you can find all the information on this public website, even if you don't have any social media accounts. How to get involved, how to volunteer, how to sign up to do what I'm doing, giving a community moment. Community moments, you can talk about yourself, your hobbies, things that are important, or I've already taken this topic, so you can't tell people how to navigate in the website. Support. Did you know that we have a shop? You know, of course, walk in the back, and there's shirts and swag and other things that you can pick up when you're here. We also have it online. And the most important link is kcoasis.org/donate. So we have, again, a QR code coming up later that will just take you to this page. But once you're here, I don't want you to freak out when you click the donate button and it goes away from kcoasis.org, because we have embedded in here the website where you can make that donation. It's giving.myamplify.io. It's legit. That's how we get donations. All right, so there's a few ways you can do it. You can do a one-time donation, or you can do recurring gifts, which of course we recommend. That way you don't forget about it, as well as we can plan for our ongoing expenses. How often? Whenever you want. Weekly, bi-weekly, twice a month, monthly, quarterly, annually, it's all there. So one of the things that I didn't know about until I prepared for this talk, let's get it set up to do a donation and frequency monthly. How would you like to give? You can give your debit card, your credit card, automatic from your checking account, PayPal, Google Pay, Venmo, lots of options, all from the website. And of course, putting in your information and submit. If you're setting up a recurring gift, it will ask you to set up an account so that you can change it. If you want to increase it, decrease it, change the frequency, then there's the sign in. So Julie can talk more about it if she wants to, but right now I've heard that we need to be renting out the building and doing fundraising and things like that to make sure that we're meeting our monthly expenses. So wanted to make sure if anybody had any questions about how do I set up a recurring donation, now you've walked through the steps. And also back at the merge table, if you have any questions, we can help you with that as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jason. This community moment sponsored by the Treasury of Kansas City Oasis. No, that's me. Okay, so we'll just leave these up here for a minute, and I think they're, like Jason said, they're rotating on the slideshow that's in the lobby. So with that, we'll go on into. Oh, maybe we will. Oh, I've broken it. Okay. We'll go on into our coffee break. And During the coffee break, we encourage everyone to maybe meet somebody new and talk about, just what's on your mind this week. And we will see everyone back here in 20 minutes. Thank you. I think we have just wrapped up our coffee break. Okay, before we get started, before I talk to Steve, we have a little typo here in Steve's Venmo. Stacy's name is not spelled with an E in it. So if you tried to Venmo and it just spiraled and circled the drain, that would be why. So it's just STACY-Morton-1. So there you go. A little housekeeping. Okay, so before we ask Steve to play another selection, I am just curious about music and musicians because I have no musical talent or ability of any kind. So Steve, when did you first, or what first got you interested in music? Like what were some of your early things you listened to as a younger person that inspired you, or you were like, oh, this is really my lane of music that I like?
Well, when I was little, my mom was a professional singer, so she sang in the clubs and the pubs and
After this many years, I did not know that. That seems wrong.
Around the city. So, and the stuff she sang was mainly from like the musicals. So I grew up with Sound of Music, My Fair Lady, Camelot, Carousel.
Now this part I did know because you and
Prince,
I same about.
And my dad, Student Prince and things like that. So. I grew up with hearing her. My earliest memories are hearing her just singing around the house.
Yeah.
So it was really nice memories,
Yeah.
And so my thing was, if I listen to music and I know it, I got to sing along. So I apologize now if I'm with you and some music comes on and I start singing along because
like Sweet Caroline.
I've been told to shut up more times.
Like Sweet Caroline, your favorite?
Yeah.
Just kidding. He hates that. Okay. I knew I was going to bring that up at some time because
I'm going to play that.
Are you going to play it?
Yes.
You are killing me. You are killing me. I don't know how many times we've talked about it.
Thunder.
Oh, there are two kinds of people: those that love Neil Diamond and those that don't. Okay.
Right.
I hope that's not what you're playing.
That's my only karaoke song is Coming to America.
Oh, well, that's different. No, that's different. I'm not saying all Neil Diamond, just that one.
Right.
And as far as taking up the guitar, when did you do that?
Well, I was in my early teens and literally got together with a group. It was in the Jehovah's Witnesses,
Sure.
so we weren't encouraged to be in a band or anything,
Right.
But we all got together at a house, and there was about 6 or 7 of us, and I learned to play the guitar after a fashion. I got to a certain point, and I never got any further, so don't ask me to come up the fretboard here.
Fair enough.
It all stays down here.
It all stays down there.
But,
Okay.
but I just like singing to myself, and
Yeah.
on the odd occasion, I mean, I haven't sung before this many people for, I can't remember how long, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've been in pubs with you. I've been lots of places where I've gotten to hear you sing. So with that, let's give another big Oasis welcome to Steve Morton.
So this song is by somebody you probably won't have heard of. His name was Clifford T. Ward, and in the early 70s, he was an English school teacher in Worcestershire in England, and he also had a band, and he had 2 or 3 hits in the early 70s, and I loved him when I was a teenager, kind of soft, folky stuff. So yeah, this song is called Someone I Know. It's just a quirky little song. Someone I know is making you sad. Someone who ought to know better than that. Thought I knew him well, but you can never tell. We don't get on too well after all. Someone I know is making you cry. Someone who should have been eager to try, but he grew worldly wise, and he learned how to lie. We don't see eye to eye, anymore. Now the cellos are supposed to come in, but you know. So someone I know is setting you free. Someone who should have been happy to be with someone like you, but he couldn't be true. Someone I thought I knew, someone called me. Short and sweet.
Twist ending on that one, yeah. Okay. Here's a question. Do you have any upcoming events we can see you again? We'll all swarm their living room at some point. Okay. One more thing I want to say. We also would like to acknowledge and congratulate Steve on his retirement that just happened recently from Mosaic Healthcare. So that is an exciting change of life that Steve got to experience. With that, we will get into our featured speaker. We like to offer a disclaimer at the beginning of these programs because it is designed to generate conversation and engage our powers of reason, but not as a forum to start debates. The following presentation has been prepared by our speaker and not by Kansas City Oasis. So please respect the views of our speaker, and if you have any questions, a Q&A portion will follow. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Matt Beat, who is a YouTuber, video producer, podcast host, and musician. He's taught various subjects in the classroom from grades 7 to 12. His YouTube channels, Mr. Beat and The Beat Goes On, have accumulated over 1 million subscribers and 300 million views, helping expand his classroom to around the world. Beat's specialty is American history, but he also has a big passion for geography, economics, and politics. His band, oh, you're a musician, huh? We have a stage right here. His band, Electric Needle Room, is most known for original indie pop songs all about all of the American presidents. So if you like today's talk, he has books available there in the lobby afterwards. So with that, I welcome Matt Beat for The Power of the Supreme Court, How Supreme Court Cases Shape Democracy.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for being here. This is weird I don't have to hold the mic. This is cool. Oh, that's bright. But yeah, so a little bit more about me. I have a YouTube channel is my main place where you can find my stuff. But I'm on TikTok as well and Instagram, all that jazz. And the book that she references, it's back there. If you bought a copy, thank you. I will sign it for you if you want. I don't know if that does anything. If I sign it, it turns into a magical book or something. But yeah, that's what inspired this whole presentation that I'm going to give for you today. I'm going to try to make the Supreme Court less boring. That's my goal. And then one of my latest videos you'll see right there is I have a series where and I always joke around. I a big part of what I do is I just try to translate legalese. It's like a language, an entirely different language. And there are so many fascinating stories trapped in books. And so if you look at my list of video ideas for the future, it's more than 1,000 ideas long. I'm not even joking. But yeah, the reason why I wrote the book was because a publisher they emailed me based on this series I do called Supreme Court Briefs. Yes, Supreme Court Briefs. But yeah, so for those of you who don't know, I started out as a middle school and high school social studies teacher, and it's hard to get 8th graders into social studies, but also just to break down these complicated concepts And so I made the videos mostly for my students, but then later on, just people started watching them for fun, which to this day is shocking. So it's amazing that people are curious enough to learn this on their own, and it's pretty cool because the series continues. Despite, I have this little clicker thing. Yeah. How long can I go? 30 minutes, is that what you said? Okay, I'll try to keep it under 30 or 3 hours. How about that? Is that right? No. Okay, no, I'll try to be brief. Okay. But yeah, so this is the series. There's some examples. There's probably some Supreme Court cases that you recognize, perchance, hopefully, up there. The most important one is Marbury v. Madison. We'll get to that in a moment. That's the lower right-hand corner. But so if you don't want to read the book, is what I'm saying, like, that's okay. Just you can watch the videos for free online. And the other thing that, like, oh, you can't even see it on there. Okay. Well, the other thing I want to stress is, like, I want you to walk away today a little bit more optimistic about the Supreme Court. There are 9 people in the Supreme Court. They do have tremendous power. That's why my book is called The Power of the Supreme Court. However, this branch of government, I think, gets a little bit too much scrutiny because, first of all, these 9 people are actually pretty smart. Like, they know their stuff. All of them went to law school. They know the law very well. All of them had judicial experience. They were all judges before. Sure, they have biases, but we all do, man. We all have biases. We all struggle sometimes with suspending judgment when we encounter new information. But I think generally the 9 of them probably get a bad rap compared to, like, say, the president or members of Congress, the other branches that I think kind of, but they have become a very political branch of government too, and there's a lot of people that just don't like the Supreme Court. I think the most recent poll I saw showed that they had it was like less than 35% approval rating for Supreme Court, which is worse than the president. So I'm going to give a brief history of the Supreme Court, highlight some special cases, but start off by saying the Supreme Court initially did not have that much power. That's the building they first met in, the Exchange. It was called in New York City, and it was 236 years ago that they sat down and met for the first time. The first Chief Justice right there, John Jay, he didn't want the job. He's like, it wasn't that. The Supreme Court was kind of an afterthought. I mean, it was Article 3 of the Constitution. We're just like, okay, sometimes there might be issues that come up where we'll have to have justices chime in. But overall, Congress was supposed to be the main, they were supposed to have all the power. Okay, so keep that in mind. Then the other justices you see up there, John Rutledge, William Cushing, John Blair, James Wilson, James Iredell. This is back when they had the powdered wigs, very stylish. I hope they make a comeback one of these days. I see that the mullets are making a comeback with the youth. Also, beards. Politicians are starting to wear beards again. That's very exciting for an American history dork like myself. But yeah, the Judiciary Act of 1789 said that there should only be 6 justices. That's right. If Congress wanted to have 100 justices in the Supreme Court, all they have to do is pass a law. The Constitution says nothing about this. Also, my 10-year-old daughter could be a Supreme Court justice because there's nothing in the Constitution about qualifications. Any of you would make a fine Supreme Court justice. I've already chatted with you, so just keep that in mind. Like, I would nominate you if I was president. But yeah, so again, the first time they met up, it was just boring procedural stuff, no important decisions. And then comes along this guy, I call him Little John Marshall, one of the most influential Americans in history that some of you probably have never even heard of this guy, but he was the first Chief Justice who had significant influence. I mentioned Marbury v. Madison earlier. That was, in my view, it's still, I think, the most important Supreme Court case in American history because it literally gave the Supreme Court power. So I'm not going to go through all the details of all these cases, but simply put, Marbury v. Madison was like This guy was supposed to, John Adams appointed him to an office in the federal government, but then John Adams didn't get reelected, and so Thomas Jefferson comes in, he's like, no, I'm not going to hire that dude. And so the dude who didn't get hired fought it in court. It gets all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court says, you can't have your job, sorry, buddy. But the more important thing that the Supreme Court said in that case, Marbury v. Madison, was, we have the power of judicial review, which means we have the power to interpret the Constitution and determine if a law is constitutional or not. Not only that, if the president does something, we can even say that's constitutional or not. And if we say it's unconstitutional, that law goes away, man. No more. That's a big freaking deal. And this power this was not explicitly listed. Sorry, I'm getting passionate. I'm getting worked up about this. Some of you are trying to fall asleep. That's why I'm doing this. Wake up back there. So there's nothing in the Constitution about this. So this all of a sudden, like, this raises up the judicial branch. They have all this extra power, and that's thanks to Lil John Marshall. And McCulloch v. Maryland, that was a case decided a few years later. And John Marshall was a really charismatic guy, had a lot of riz. He got the guys together and said, we all need to agree unanimously. He was a good leader, and he got them all on the same page. And so now the president and Congress are kind of freaking out, like, the Supreme Court can't do all this. But in McCulloch v. Maryland, they said, yeah, also, there are implied powers, which means the Constitution doesn't have to literally say, you don't have to, just because it's not literally explicitly said in the Constitution doesn't mean we can't do it. In other words, like, there's a lot of powers that the government has that are implied, not explicitly stated in the Constitution. Because the Constitution isn't that long. If anyone read the Constitution lately? I know the president hasn't, but maybe some of you have. Yeah, like, there's a few, like, there's not much in there. So over the years, justices have interpreted it to mean more than what it literally says. And this all started with McCulloch v. Maryland. Gibbons v. Ogden got a little bit more specific, saying, hey, interstate commerce. So anytime there's trade going down between more than one state, the federal government can step in. That's right. And then just from there, there's been no going back, really. I mean, it hasn't been going back. The Supreme Court, that's why the Supreme Court has so much power. And then just jumping ahead here, because, everybody dies at some point. John Marshall dies, and then we have a new Supreme Court justice who's much more controversial, but for maybe like very different reasons. That's Roger Taney, and he's kind of infamous in American history because he was the one who wrote the majority opinion for the case Dred Scott decision. And you may recall that you probably learned this in American history class, like in high school, but that was the decision in which the Supreme Court, and Taney specifically, said that not only is slavery, of course, the law of the land, like it's completely protected under the Constitution, but also this Dred Scott was somebody who was freed by his master, and so he was saying, no, I'm a citizen. Well, Taney said, no, if you're a slave, you are not a citizen. You do not have the same rights protected under the Bill of Rights of the Constitution. So this is, in my view, probably the worst Supreme Court decision in American history, and of course, a big cause of the Civil War, because this decision, in reaction to it, this is when the Supreme Court became very controversial. Abolitionists in the North began to grow their movement after this, and just 4 years afterward, the war would begin. In fact, John Brown, who's lived in my neck of the woods, we live in Lawrence, he was very inspired to do what he did, that he killed some people based on this decision. So, Civil War happens. What's kind of crazy, a lot of people don't realize that this dude, have you heard this guy? Yeah, he's on the penny, $5 bill. Abraham Lincoln, considered often the greatest American president of all time. But he dramatically expanded the power of the presidency during the Civil War. What's interesting that a lot of people don't know about is that the Supreme Court reined his power in, because wartime often requires a lot of times the president has to do things that's have to limit some freedoms, like martial law. Lincoln actually threw some journalists in prison, suspended habeas corpus. So the Supreme Court kind of became more proactive, reining in his power. But in the aftermath of the Supreme Court, we also had some dramatic changes to the Constitution, the Reconstruction Amendments, 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. The 14th Amendment, by far, in my view, is other than the First Amendment, the most important part of the Constitution. So pop quiz, what does the 14th Amendment say? Anyone? Bueller? Somebody knows over here. Equal protection under the law is the main thing. Yeah, equality. This is where we get like so many things we take for granted. Go back to the 14th Amendment. So the three parts that says state and federal citizenship is guaranteed to all persons regardless of race or skin color. That's known as the Citizenship Clause. The second part, state and local governments cannot prevent people from life, liberty, or property without certain steps being taken to make everything fair. This part's known as the Due Process Clause. Due process has been in the news lately, hasn't it? Notice how it doesn't say you have to be a citizen to get due process. Anybody, a human being, gets due process, which just means you have to know why you're being arrested, what are the charges. You can't just throw somebody in jail and they can't know why. And the third part of the 14th Amendment is all people are guaranteed equal protection under the laws, Equal Protection Clause, and that part is what many future Supreme Court decisions would all fall back on. And so if you read like a lot of Supreme Court decisions, like I do, a lot of the times they're interpreting the 14th Amendment. So let's jump ahead now to a different era. This is the bearded age I was talking about. Beards are coming back, which is promising, but you had, of course, you still had old white dudes on the bench. It's the late 1800s. But I bring this period up only briefly. There's the horrible decision, Plessy v. Ferguson, which said segregation was okay as long as the facilities were equal. Bull crap, that was not ever true. So later overturned by Brown v. Board of Education, which I'm sure you know about. But also, this was what we call the Lochner era. There's a case, Lochner v. New York, in which there were certain states that tried to pass laws that said you had to pay your workers a minimum amount, either by week or by day or by hour, which today we have a minimum wage. We kind of take it for granted, but that's a relatively new thing. So states started saying, hey, you got to pay your worker at least this amount, man. Come on. And so the federal government didn't control this. And some people in some states fought back, and that was one of those cases. New York, Lochner fought the state of New York because New York had a minimum wage law, which was for the weekend. Anyway, the Supreme Court sided with Lochner and said that no, even state governments can't interfere they can't force a company to pay their workers a certain amount. And so this kind of was a big shift to the right politically for the Supreme Court. And this era, which again is known as the Lochner era, started in around 1905. The Supreme Court had very similar decisions all the way up until the time of Franklin Roosevelt. And that case there, West Coast Hotel Company v. Parrish, which, by the way, all of these cases are in my book, of course, because they're very important. But that was the case in which essentially Franklin Roosevelt, prior to that case, he had all these New Deal laws that were getting passed to increase the power of the federal government to intervene to help people that needed help. States would keep fighting back against it. West Coast Hotel v. Parrish was the first case in which the Supreme Court said, no, actually the the federal government can step in and regulate these economic activities in states. And so that was a turning point. And after that decision, all future New Deal legislation was actually protected. The Supreme Court sided with FDR, and that's why I have the evil eyes with the FDR. He got his way after that. And you may have learned at that time that was when he was talking about, well, we need to expand the size of the Supreme Court, which critics said pack the court. which really was completely constitutional. And I look back on it, it really wasn't that controversial what Franklin Roosevelt said. All he said was, hey, if you got some really old people in the Supreme Court, if they won't retire, then we're allowed to add more justices. That's all he said. Not that controversial, in my opinion. Okay, and it wasn't until the 1930s that they actually started meeting in this fancy building. Before this, they were like in the back room and wherever. So again, a lot more power, a lot more visit. And then this guy, oh man, Earl Warren, what a big freaking deal he was too, because, well, he was a governor of California before he was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. But once he took over, Eisenhower appointed him. A lot of people did not see it coming, but Earl Warren he also dramatically expanded the power of the Supreme Court. Those are all decisions that happened that he wrote the majority opinion for. And not only that, most of them were like unanimous or nearly unanimous, including the aforementioned Brown versus the Board of Education, which ended racial segregation. And so that's the most famous case he's known for. Oh, I have a laser pointer on here. Let's see if this thing works. That's his most famous. It does work. Look at that. But this one here, Engel v. Vitale, that's also that's the case that said states can't force students to pray in public schools. Matt v. Ohio is the one that said the police just can't bust through your door and look through your stuff without a warrant, protecting the Fourth Amendment. Gideon v. Wainwright, that's the one where if you can't afford a lawyer, then the state must provide you one. Yeah, Gideon couldn't afford a lawyer. Miranda v. Arizona, you guys know that one. Yeah, the Miranda rights come from you have to know you have the right to remain silent, all that stuff you see in those shows. Griswold v. Connecticut was the first time the federal government stepped in to say that states cannot ban birth control. Loving v. Virginia, it's kind of sad it took this long, but 1967 was finally the Supreme Court's interracial marriage is bad. It was 1967. Wasn't that long ago. Many of you were alive then. And Baker v. Carr, which is my personal favorite other than Brown v. Board of Education, because Baker v. Carr was the one that said one person's vote is equal to all other people's votes. So just because you live in a rural area doesn't mean your vote's worth 10 times as much as somebody who lives in a city. There's been ways around that ever since, though. So that story is not over with, but that kind of is the first time you saw that. So that's all under Earl Warren, very influential Chief Justice. But at the same time, this freaks out a lot of people because it's like, wow, again, you're expanding the size of not just the Supreme Court, but also all of the federal government. And so you see this backlash from states' rights folks, and you have for a few decades anyway, the shadow of Warren was still there, but flash forward to the early aughts. Then we have this guy who's the current Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts. When he first took over 2005, appointed by George W. Bush, the Supreme Court at that time was actually still fairly popular. There was one case that was a little controversial, Bush v. Gore, in which they said, stop the recount in Florida. Bush is the president. Other than that, though, the Supreme Court still had a pretty good reputation. But since then, its reputation, like I said earlier, has been on the decline. Now they're not very popular. But a few significant cases that have happened in recent years under his leadership, which I say leadership, I've been very critical of Roberts. I don't think a lot of times he's really the leader that he should be. Again, that's my personal opinion, so please note that. But D.C. v. Heller is a case that expanded, actually it was the most significant Second Amendment Supreme Court case. It was the first time that the Supreme Court or any federal court said the Second Amendment is for self-defense from tyranny. They explicitly said that. Not only that, McDonald v. Chicago a few years later said that states cannot restrict your right to own a firearm. So those two cases were significant. Citizens United v. FEC is another significant one I'm sure that some of you have heard of. That case said that not only are corporations people, but also if you are limiting an organization's ability to spend money to support a political campaign, you're actually breaking the First Amendment. So this opened up the floodgates for how much money organizations could donate to political candidates. And that's why it's like this past presidential election, I think there was like a couple $2 billion spent on the candidates. Shelby County v. Holder is a case that it's a case near and dear to my heart because I'm really passionate about voting rights and like voter suppression. And Shelby County v. Holder was a case in 2013 in which the court said that parts of the Voting Rights Act no longer applied anymore. And so that means that if you because the Voting Rights Act, just to review class, it was 1965, that was put in place to for the federal government to strictly monitor what southern states were doing to make sure that they were not up to shenanigans like they were during the Jim Crow era. So the voter suppression that happened where there were literacy tests and there was they were extreme obstacles to vote. Well, the Supreme Court says by 2013, time has passed, the South has learned their lessons, so we can remove parts of these Voting Rights Act. Well, what's happened since then? In the 12 years since, we've had an increase in voter suppression, not just southern states, but a lot of red states. What a surprise. So getting rid of early voting, getting rid of polling locations, stuff like that. And Obergefell v. Hodges is probably the most famous Roberts case, although he voted against the majority opinion. But that was the one that legalized same-sex marriage. And only a few years after that did Congress actually pass a law that legalized same-sex marriage. And so that just shows you how powerful they've had, because again, they just like with the Loving v. Virginia case, they just changed the law essentially by that power of judicial review. And so in conclusion, their power has dramatically grown in recent years. Politically, in terms of political ideology, they've definitely leaned more to the right. But I would say, it's important to remember that this is supposed to be an apolitical branch of government, meaning they're supposed to be immune from politics. They're not supposed to look at the day-to-day news cycle in terms of, what are people mad about? They don't have to worry about being reelected. Yeah, that's kind of scary that somebody can be my age and join the Supreme Court and then live for another 50 years. That's kind of terrifying, like these lifetime appointments. But at the same time, I try to my reassurance comes from the fact that a lot of times the Supreme Court, especially today's Supreme Court, they're actually trying to limit their own power. A lot of them have vocally been critical of how the Warren Court in particular expanded their power. They want Congress to have more power as they were originally supposed to. You can agree with that or not, but just know that's where they're kind of generally coming from, and I try to say that mostly just to comfort folks. Another thing that we're seeing just literally the last 2 weeks is they're now, even though they're appointed, many of the members appointed by the president, they're voting against the president. And now you're seeing checks and balances, I think, is one of the most beautiful parts of the American system of government. So we're a democratic republic in which the people in power are A, public servants, but also B, they're kind of all against each other, trying to. So as the president has gained more power over the years, so has the Supreme Court. Now it's just a matter of getting power back to Congress, I think, is what the main concern is. Will Congress do something? Because the last major law that Congress passed, think about it. What was the last major law that Congress passed where it was like a big deal? Where Obamacare, really, yeah. You could say that Biden got some pretty big laws passed, but it was slim majorities. It was barely, 51 senators voted that the infrastructure law, the CHIPS Act was pretty big, but really Obamacare was the last law where 60 senators were on board. And so Congress has not been doing much in recent years other than just okay, well, we still need to pay the bills. And so that's why I think, that's why the Supreme Court has got so much attention. So thank you for having me today. I hope I didn't bore you too much. Yeah,
Thank you.
I guess.
I have a feeling, Matt, if you're up for it, I feel like there's going to be a lot of questions. Because
Sure.
I even have about 5 of my own if you guys don't think of something. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if the Supreme Court rules against the president, hypothetically, and he ignores that, how can they enforce it? What powers do they have of enforcement?
Well, the enforcement branch of the government is the president, so they don't have any power. And already the president is ignoring the Supreme Court, or at least saying, "Oh, I can't do anything. El Salvador has all the." So then, who's the other branch that needs to step in? It's Congress. So that means that ideally, theoretically, it would be the House of Representatives saying, "Okay, maybe we need to impeach him because maybe he's going against the Constitution." Yeah. We're living in fun times, aren't we? This is great.
Okay, one back here.
I really have two, so I'll let you take your choice. You didn't mention Dobbs and the enormous gifts some of the Supreme Court justices have gotten.
That second part, yeah. So the weird thing about the Supreme Court is that they set their own code of ethics, and so there's just like there's no like independent watchdog group that says you can't do that. That's bad. They're like, no, we'll just make sure we're behaving ourselves. And so, yeah, in recent years, there's been some scandals, notably of Justice Clarence Thomas, who has received a lot of indirect not donations, but just he's got a lot of perks for the job, and from people that have wanted him to decide a certain way. And so, yeah, like that's why some people have actually called for him to be impeached. There's only been one Supreme Court justice ever impeached, and that was Samuel Chase in 1790-something. And he was actually not removed from the Supreme Court. And the reason why he was impeached was because he was being too political. Go figure. But yeah, it's very rare for the Supreme Court to get impeached.
Okay, yep, one up here. I'm like, oh, it's my turn if I
people
don't see a hand.
How's-
Hi, thanks. You said the Supreme Court is to be apolitical,
Supposed
and
to be.
right, and there also seems to be moving to the right. Do you think that's because the country is moving to the right? That's one thing, and maybe it's not. I mean, I'm just trying to be positive here. It's
Yeah.
not that they're become political; they're trying to reflect. And also during the Amy Coney Barrett confirmation hearings, I remember her. She would speak of something called, you'll know the term, but when a law is so rooted in society and we're so much depending on it,
Yeah.
of course, and then they went and changed the whatever that she said they wouldn't. But, so do they at least consider protests that are going on or take the temperature of the people? And is that considered political? I wouldn't, is that part of their job to consider how their rulings will affect? Yeah.
That's a great question. Absolutely. I would say that they may say that they're, oh no, I'm an originalist. I think that's bull crap. I think most of the time they have their finger on the pulse, and we saw that with that aforementioned case I mentioned. What was it? West Coast Hotel v. Parrish. They realized a lot of people were upset with the Supreme Court because they kept voting against the very, very popular New Deal legislation. And so I think I would argue that the country is not as far right as we think that it is. I think it's just because we, especially since 20 years ago, we've had a very unrepresentative democracy. So what that means is we've had, like if you look who's in power, it does not truly represent who citizens, where we stand. So what I mean is like, 88% of Americans want universal background checks on guns. That's not going to happen in Congress, no. 88%. That's a lot of people that are not being represented in Congress. And so we have that problem. So as the country has actually shifted to the left, especially on social issues, even on economic ones, it's crazy what I'm hearing these days. Like, I just think that government is usually last to the party. they're usually the last ones to the party. They're like, society has already changed, and then they're like, oh, I guess we should change too. I could go on for a couple hours on that question alone, but let's go.
Okay. Any more hands? Okay, my turn then. So, recently we have seen the eroding of some rights that existed. Oh, I don't know, the year I was born in the 70s regarding women's rights for reproductive choice. Do you see anything on the horizon as far as maybe some new case that will rise to the level of the Supreme Court to challenge what they've done? Or is it now established law?
Yeah. I was supposed to bring that case up and I forgot. Thanks for bringing it up. So Jackson v. Dobbs is the extremely controversial case of, what was it, 2 years ago now? It's also, I think, mentioned in my book, but it was like just happened. And I was like, oh my gosh, did this really just happen as I was writing? But Roe v. Wade was overturned, so that means now the states they determine how legal abortion is. And I personally, I don't see that lasting, because again, it's very unpopular, and it's actually, the evidence is showing that, there's a lot of people that are now in danger because of that decision. And so I just think that as the years go on, I think we're going to see it. I mean, it is kind of weird to see a case overturned. That's rare, but I think overall, though, this is just something that's so controversial that we're going to see it flipped again. That's my prediction, anyway.
All right. Oh, one more over here. Well, okay. Last question goes to you, my friend.
So we were talking a little bit before the service, or whatever it's called, and you mentioned this idea of kind of a demographic shift or a big swing kind of the other way that you see somewhere in the future. Could you speak a little bit more on that and maybe when you see it happening potentially?
Yeah, we were talking about, I sent a post on social media about, I focus a lot on the Senate because the Senate has all this power and they do a lot of grandstanding, but they don't really do much in terms of passing laws. And so, but the Senate, if you look at the makeup of the Senate, 98% of them are Gen X or older. So there's only 2 millennials in the Senate. And yet, if you look at the general population of the country, I think millennials are the largest population now. That's my generation, and we're just not in government. So the people that are in government right now are just kind of holding on to that power. They don't want to give it up. And so what's going to happen is, and again, I mentioned this earlier, all of us die. So what's going to happen is they're all going to, there's going to be, I know there's a lot of doomers right now. I get so freaking sick of the doomerism. Things are going to change, and they're going to get better. I'm telling you that right now. If you study history long enough, you zoom out, you still don't believe me, do you? They will get better. Because when things change, they happen quickly. And for those of you in the room who were alive during the 60s, you know the 60s, a lot of things changed very quickly, and nobody predicted it would happen like that. I think that within the next 10, 15 years, you're going to see a lot of dramatic changes for the better. And it's mostly because the people that are currently in power are just going to they're going to die. Yeah. That's a good place to end it. Thank you. You've been a great audience.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, we'll leave it there. That's the parting word. They're going to die. Hope springs eternal on that note. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and invite Steve back up to the stage. I just want to remind everyone that Kansas City Oasis is a 501c3 nonprofit, run solely on donations and volunteer staffed. Jason walked you through all the rest of that, so I'm not going to go into it any more than that. I think I know what you're going to play next, because I spoiled it. And just again, remember, Stacy's name does not have an E in it, if you would like to show your appreciation with tips. With that, my dear friend, Steve Morton.
Thank you. So yeah, this last song had me kind of puzzled for quite a bit, because I thought, well, I got a song by Jeff Lynne about climate change, or I got other songs, but they're all kind of dirgy. In fact, my wife says, why do sad songs make you happy? So I'm not going to sing that. I'm just going to sing the song that Julie mentioned before. So you can sing along if you like, because it's a happy song. Where it began, I can begin to know it. I only know it's growing strong. 'Twas in the spring, when spring became the summer. Who'd have believed you'd come along? Warmth, touching warmth, reaching out, touching me, touching you, sweet Caroline. Well, good times never seem so good. You know that I've been inclined to believe they never would. Oh, no, I've look at the night, and it don't seem so lonely. You fill it up with only truth. And when I hurt, the hurt runs off my shoulders. How can I hurt when I'm holding you? Hands, touching hands, reaching out, touching me, touching you, sweet Caroline. Good times never seem so good. I've been inclined to believe they never would. Sweet Caroline, good times never seem so good. I've been inclined to believe they never would. Oh, no, sweet Caroline.
I wasn't sure. I don't know that I'd ever have imagined that I'd have seen that, but you know, it's very exciting. All right. Nothing beats a good sing-along. All right. So that brings our program close to a conclusion. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can join us for lunch at the Crown Center Food Court. There's the address. We push several tables together until they look like a big caterpillar, and we all sit around. That is weird if you've never been there, but you'll see. 2450 Grand Boulevard. We would ask that, like I mentioned earlier, if you would take a few minutes and help pick up around you, that would be much appreciated. And again, there are many volunteer opportunities that we're always looking for more hands to help with. So with that, I'll just talk a little bit about what we can expect next week. On May the 4th, our speaker will be a returning speaker here to Kansas City Oasis, local historian Fred Whitehead, talking about our local Underground Railroad. Our musical guest will be Caitlin Grace and the community moment from Will Manning. So with that, it's just up to me to thank our presenters. We want to thank Jason for filling in again at the last minute, for Matt and our musician Steve. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here or tuning in online or seeing this 6 years from now. The only thing that makes the community is the people in it, and we're so grateful to see all of you here. So we'll see you next week. Thank you.